We are at 251 people on the call. It's still growing. Welcome, Jean. Take it over.
Welcome, everybody. Wow, accountants are pretty healthy people. They're gourmets. If everyone's telling the truth, this is a pretty amazing, breakfast list. I wonder, maybe these were our intentions. What do we? This is what we intend to eat for breakfast.
I did see a few people that just had coffee this morning.
Right.
For those of you just getting in, we had everybody put in the chat what they ate. And by the way, that's how you're going to talk to me, and that's how I'm going to talk to you, through the chat. All right, Jean, go for it.
So welcome, everybody. This is day one of a 2-day intensive with Greg and his team. You're in incredible hands. I'm Jean. I coordinate the leadership webinars for Nonprofit Quarterly. Some of you know that and are members of our Leading Edge program. And some of you just came here for Greg and you have no idea that you're in a Nonprofit Quarterly space. So welcome to everybody across that continuum. This is an annual event we do with Greg and his team. You're going to learn more. There's a whole bevy of people here to support you. But on the NPQ side, Nonprofit Quarterly side, that's who you got your registration from. That's who you're going to get the recording from and the slides from. I'll say that again. You're going to get the recording and the slides of both days. And Greg will say that again. I know. Don't worry. You're going to get that just like you got your registration from Nonprofit Quarterly, from NPQ. And if you have any questions about your registration or about tomorrow or that kind of thing, go back to that webinar at npq.org and communicate with us. Greg's team, they're the subject matter experts. They're the people you ask questions about QuickBooks and accounting over the next 2 hours today and 2 hours tomorrow. So I think with that, I will turn it over to Greg to orient you to today's agenda. Thank you all for being here. This is a wonderful, wonderful annual training, and we're glad you're part of it.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. And the person who ate goulash or kalush, I still don't know what that is. Kalushe. I don't know. Put it in the chat. All right. Hello. Now, if you've not seen me teach before, this is kind of a unique sort of a situation. We play music. We try and keep it fun. We also spend most of our time either in QuickBooks or really learning. This is intensive learning. Now, it's going to be about 2 hours today and about 2 hours tomorrow. I know there's no way you can sit and listen to me babble for 2 days or for 2 hours a day without stopping. So we are going to take a break after 50 minutes, okay? So in 50 minutes, we're going to take a break. So you paid for this thing. Yes, you're going to get a recording. Yes, you're going to get a recording. Yes, you're going to get a recording. However, I want you to listen live. So you paid for it. So for the next 50 minutes before we take our first break, don't be on Facebook. Don't be on the phone. Don't text message. Don't go to the bathroom. Don't talk to anybody. Pay attention to me and the screen, okay? Because I promise you, you're going to learn a lot. Now, myself, I should introduce myself. Well, this is our entire team. I'm a CPA. Now, just stop what you're doing for a second. Look at the screen. You know that person who you get to do the 990 at the end of the year, or who you get to do your bookkeeping, or maybe you have an audit done once a year? I have an accounting firm that does that. We have a firm in Atlanta. We do audits, tax returns for nonprofits, bookkeeping for nonprofits. That's our main focus. We do it all over the country. And then I also own a company called QuickBooks Made Easy. And all QuickBooks Made Easy is a company that teaches people how to use Quickity Books. All right. And this is our website. And there's all kinds of training, tech support you can get. There's support services, all kinds of help you can get here. We'll talk about it a little bit later. I'm not going to worry about it now. One of the things that we do is we have technical support, though. And when you ask questions today and tomorrow, if they are smaller questions, put them in the chat, and I will see them and I will answer them on the fly while I'm teaching, okay? If you have a long, drawn-out question that takes a minute to type, it's going to take me even longer to read it. That's what you put in the Q&A section. Paige, you'll see her picture down here at the bottom on the left. She is one of our tech support people. She also is amazing, and she will be able to answer your questions that are longer, and I'll probably have her come on the screen. If there's anybody that specializes in houses of worship, or you are a house of worship, Barb is specifically for that, and we do have training products just for houses of worship. Bill, he's on the back side. He does all the marketing and stuff for us and kind of runs things on the back end. All right, so myself, I own the company, QuickBooks Made Easy. I also have a CPA firm, and I think that's really all I want to say. So I'll show you what the topics are in a second. Before I do that, though, I just want to make sure you understand you're using Zoom. Is there anybody who thinks it's too small? The screen is too small. I can't see it. Anybody feel that way? Put it in the chat here. Remember, we're going to be in QuickBooks. We're going to be working in QuickBooks, which is this. This is the online edition. This is what we're going to be working in. Is this too small for you guys? If you can't see it, you probably need to let me know. Everybody good? Okay, everybody thinks it's good. I do want to tell you that you can make the screens bigger if you basically move your mouse around the Zoom screen. This will pop up, this view button in the top right-hand corner. And if you push it, one of the options that you can pick is full screen, which is right here. And then you'll see the whole thing nice and big. Of course, you won't be able to see the chat or the polls. So if you want to chat or you want to answer a poll, everybody needs to answer the poll. Then you'll want to go back in here and make it small again so you can see everything, okay? The other thing that I can do, and feel free to tell me as we go through the next 2 days, I can zoom in and make it really big if you're having trouble seeing it, all right? So I think that's everything I need to say about that. Let's see, this is what we do. Let's get to, I will say this. We have a 3-day webinar series coming up that's a full encompass training for those of you that aren't that great at QuickBooks, all right? Let's see how I teach. If you like it, maybe you sign up for the 3-day webinar series. It's 2.5 hours a day, and we're going to give you a discount for it. But before we do that, let's just cover what we're going to go over. So this webinar, 2 hours a day, day 1, that's today. We're going to look at in-kind contributions. We're going to look at tracking volunteers. We're going to be looking at auto-allocating expenses. We'll talk about what that means later. And then we'll look at board reporting. That's what we're doing today. Tomorrow is restricted grants day. We're spending a chunk of the time on restricted grants. We're going to do more board reporting, and we'll also do some extra special stuff that you might also need. All right, to those of you that just joined, welcome. You answer and ask, I answer questions verbally. You ask them through the chat. So find the chat, all right? Now, one more thing I need to say. We are teaching the online edition. What we're going to be learning today, we're learning how to do it in the online edition. This needs to be what your program looks like. If this is what it looks like, you're in the right place, okay? One of these. If, however, your program looks like this, you are in the wrong place. We did that webinar yesterday and the day before. There are people here that are in the wrong webinar. Stick it in the chat right now. I want to know who is in the wrong webinar, because this is the one from yesterday. We're doing this today. Who is it that's in the wrong place? Put it in the chat. Don't be shy. There you go. So we got 2 people so far. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Yes, the camera and the sound is off for y'all. Okay, so we got about 8 or 9 people that are in the wrong webinar. We've got 300 people on the call. That's pretty good odds. Here's what I want you to do. You are more than welcome to stay, because we are not just learning QuickBooks stuff, we're learning accounting stuff. And then we're going to give you, or MPQ is going to give you the recordings from the last couple of days. All right. So that's what the dealio is there. So Anybody got a problem with that before we move on? All right, cool. This is the last time you'll see this. I'm exiting out because we are not learning that. That's in the recording from yesterday and the day before. We are learning this, okay? All right, so we're good. All right, so how do I make sure I get the other recording? So Jean, do you want to tell them?
Yes, so that it keeps popping up, I keep placing it in the chat. So you need to email webinar@npqmag.org and let them know that you want the recording from the other session. As Greg said, it's fine to stay here, but if you really are on desktop, you need that recording. Okay, so you need to email your situation. I've placed it in the chat several times. It's also the email you got your registration from.
Okay.
And we will take care of you on a case-by-case basis, not to worry.
All right. And one more time, yes, you will be getting a recording of today and tomorrow as well, okay? So you will get the recordings, all right? And for those of you that came in late, you better stop working and listen to me because you paid for this and we're breaking in like 45 minutes, all right? We're gonna break halfway through. All right, let's move. So let's get started. So the first topic, well, is going to be in-kind contributions. So this is what we're covering today. All right. Now I am going to ask one poll question and then we're going to get started. And I want to know how comfortable you how comfortable you are with QuickBooks. Okay. So please answer the poll question. Don't put it in the chat. Answer the poll question. I'm a newbie. I know QuickBooks Desktop, but I'm new to online. There'll be people like that. I'm new to online. I mean, I know online, but I don't know nonprofit accounting. There'll be people like that too. I'm on QuickBooks Online. I know nonprofits, but I just have some questions. And then I'm an expert and I'm here just to judge and heckle. We've got 100 more people that need to answer. This is not your normal webinar. If you don't answer the poll, I will find you and call you out in front of the group. So you better pay attention. All right. All right. So we got just a few more people to answer the poll. Stop doing other work. Just listen to me. And we'll end in 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. It's always amazing to me. There's still like 30 people that haven't answered. It's like you paid for this. Where are you? But anyway, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share the results. And you can see that 27, a quarter of you are brand new. Now, this workshop is going to get into some advanced stuff, but I'm good at teaching. I'll explain it to you, but it is going to open your eyes to some of the other stuff that you really need, and you probably need to come to the 3-day webinar series. And we have 103 people that know it pretty well, and they're looking for some advanced stuff. So the rest of you are just kind of around between all of that. All right, so that really helps me. All right, so I am ready to start. And first thing is in-kind contributions. We're going to talk about what they are and why they matter. We're going to talk about what should be included on your financial statements versus your tax returns, because those are different. How to value them, how and where to enter them in QuickBooks so you can track them in QuickBooks Online. And then finally, what are your responsibilities are for the donor. Okay, Becky asks a question. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this. Now, as we go through the next 2 days, there's going to be all kinds of little tips and tricks you're going to pick up. So when you go, this is QuickBooks Online, okay? This gear here, if you click on this gear, you're going to see something that says switch to business view. This main page is called the home page or the dashboard, okay? And there's a getting things done tab and there's a business overview tab, all right? When I click on this gear, there's something called switch to business view. If I click it, it's going to turn it into something that I do not like. And this is the business view. This is a detailed word. In my view, very technical term, this sucks. I don't like this. Don't use it. I'm going to take the gear. I'm going to go over to switch to accountant view. That's the one that you need to be working in. All right. So there you go. All right. Will you be covering interfaces with Charity Proud and PayPal? I can teach that, but only if we have time at the end of 2 days. Did you look at the table of contents on Jessica's like, oh my God, please make the screen larger, says Sherry. So we told you how to do that earlier. You must have come in late. If you roll your mouse around in Zoom and then click on the view at the top right, well, I'm glad it won't allow you, MR, because I don't like the business view anyway. If you click on view, you can make full screen, and that's how you make it bigger. What about Q&A? Are we going to be able to see them after the meeting? That I don't think so. I don't think we send out the Q&A, do we, Jean?
We can do that, actually.
Okay. Oh, we can. Okay. And Jeannie,
Yeah.
these are all the people that came in late. We already covered this. Yes, we're sending you a copy of the slides. Yes, we're sending you a recording. All right. I got to get moving. So let's get moving. All right. So, okay, here we go. All right. So first thing, and this is stuff that's not in QuickBooks. So even those of you that are in the wrong webinar, you're going to learn. What are in-kind contributions? In-kind contributions are a donation of anything other than money. All right. Now, they come in one of really 4 categories. One of them is stuff, things that you can hold with your hand, like clothing, furniture, equipment. Who else has things, not services, things that you get? Put it in the chat. Tell me what you get donated to you. Maybe computer equipment, maybe bags of clothing, maybe food. The only thing I don't want to talk about is auction items. Don't put that there, okay? Stock certificates are not things, they're like money. We can talk about that too. The rest of this stuff, medical equipment, paper goods, food. Gift cards is something we're going to separate out and talk about that separately. We'll do that at the end, but it's like money. So Candace, gift cards is like money. Museum artifacts, yes. Forget auction items. Sneakers, office equipment, skis, formula art. Okay, perfect. That's one form of getting an in-kind contribution, okay? And I'm going to say this right now. I like repetition, so I'm going to say it right now, even though it's not time yet. Those get booked in your financial statements and they get booked on the tax return, both, okay? Now, in addition to stuff, the second kind of thing that you might get is what I call specialized services, okay? These are services that you get. Now, they're not just any services, they're specialized services, all right? And by specialized, I mean 2 things. One, the service that you're getting requires skill, and the person who's doing it is trained in that skill, all right? So it may be a plumber that comes in and fixes a toilet. It may be a lawyer or an accountant that's doing work. It may be an electrician. It may be a web designer person, somebody that has the skill in what they're doing for you, and what they're doing for you requires that skill, okay? Those specialized services, and go ahead and put in the chat, a dentist, absolutely. Legal services, absolutely. A capoeira teacher, I don't know what that is, but yes. IT, interim executive director, I would say so, yes. A stripper, are you kidding me? I love that. All right, a photographer, a flooring person, a rigger, communication consultant, musicians. I cannot believe somebody said that. Auction items, no, don't book those. Dance teacher, excavation services, plumber, IT tech, exactly. All right. Bookkeeper, absolutely. Singer, absolutely. All right. As long as they're trained in singing, okay? If I'm going to be the singer, I don't know, the first thing about singer, you can't consider me a specialized service. And the reason why I want you to know that these 2 things have to be, yes, a caterer. The reason why these 2 things have to be true, and why you need to know it in order for it to be a specialized service, is because those get booked, okay, in your financial statements. If it's a service that 1, requires skill, and 2, the person doing it possesses the skill, then it is a service that's specialized. Yes, it gets booked in the financial statements. It does not get booked on the 990, only the financial statements, okay? So these two things both get booked on the financial statements, but only the stuff gets booked on the 990, okay? The monetary value is how you value it, Lindsay. We'll get there in a second. What does it mean to get booked? It means to put it in this software package that we're going to teach you how to do, Ruth. You got it? Okay. What is your 990? That's the tax return. Yes, this webinar is applicable to Canadian nonprofits because we're going to show you how to enter in kind. Gift cards, I'm going to separate that out and teach you in a little bit. So hold your questions about gift cards. We're going to do that at the end of this topic. All right. Gift cards are handled a little different. All right. So these two things get booked. They get put in your QuickBooks. Okay. All right. Non-specialized services. All right. That's every other service that you get that's not done by skilled people at all. Who is it that's doing the non-specialized services in your organization? Volunteers. That's right. That's right. So anybody who is just volunteering to do something, they are a non-specialized service, unless the thing that they're volunteering to do is something they're trained in and requires a skill. Somebody just takes tickets at a show, that doesn't require skill, okay? Somebody paints, that requires a skill, but are they trained in it? If they are, it's a specialized service. If they're not, then it's a non-specialized service. These don't get put in your QuickBooks, all right? All right. Now, finally, rent, all right? That's the fourth thing. Rent gets booked on your financials. It doesn't get put on the tax return. It's like services, okay? Is there anybody that's staying rent-free? Yes, Christina, that would be booked. Board members, that's volunteer services. If they're not using the specialized skill, then you wouldn't book it. If they're a board member that's a lawyer, then yes. Docents or guides, let's talk about it. Is it a skill? Perhaps. Is there training in that skill? Perhaps. If there is, then you would book it. Our rent is half donated, Raquel. That's perfect. Half of it is an in-kind contribution. Stephanie, office space, yes. All right. And then who else? This was Tiffany. Yes. All right. How's everyone doing? Everyone doing good? I need you engaged and involved. All right. Let's move on. So I'm going to move on to the next screen. So this is me explaining in a chart the same thing I already explained. Where do you report this stuff? Now, if you are in Canada, I don't know what the tax return like is in Canada. Okay, so I don't know what the answer to this is. So, but I'm still going to show you how to book this stuff in QuickBooks. Yes, you'll have access to the slides as well, Becky. Yes, you will. All right. So we're going to we'll send it to you. All right. So stuff gets booked in the financials, also in the tax return. Specialized services and rent gets put in the financials, is not put in the tax return. Non-specialized services, if you're in America, doesn't get booked anywhere. All right. So I'm going to give you a poll now to see whether or not you understand what in the heck I'm talking about. I'm going to launch the poll right now. Everybody who is a nonprofit, Jessica, has to fill out a 990 unless you're something like a house of worship. Okay. But I would still want you to book your in-kind contributions, Jessica. I'll tell you why we don't include auction items later. I'm in the middle of teaching right now and I'll get back to it, but don't let me forget, Jessica. All right. Which in-kind is non-specialized and cannot be booked? Now, remember what the rules are. I'm going to even put the slide back up. In order for it to be specialized, it has to be something that requires skill, and the person needs to be trained in that skill. So we have an accountant doing a 990, a repairman serving on the board, tutors who have gone through training, attorney that provides legal advice, and an IT tech setting up a network. Okay, now all of these things are definitely services that require skill. But the question is the person trained in that skill? Okay, I saw a lot of people saying tutors who have gone through tutor training, that's a non-specialized skill. No, it's not. It's a specialized skill. If you have tutors and they go through training, then you can consider them specialized, and then you can book them for generally accepted accounting principles, and you should book them. All right. Now, I'll tell you, I have a little radio show that I do on a local community-based radio station. Every one of the people that does the radio shows, we're all volunteers. Now, I'm not a professional at being on the radio, but because I went through that 6-week training class, learning how to work the board, learning the 7 deadly words I can't say, that kind of stuff, I've gotten some training. So I'm going to go ahead and book it. All right. Is there anybody that's a CASA program? A CASA? Does anyone have a CASA community act? All of those CASA advocates, Tiffany, they all should be booked. They all should be booked. Dawn wants clarification on the board skills. So board members, technically, usually you don't book them in their time going to board meetings. But if a board member says, you know what, I'm an attorney and I'm going to do some legal services for you, you book that. You don't book it just because they're on the board. You book it for something that they do, whether or not they're on the board or not on the board. So hopefully that explains you. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's move on. All right. We already did that. Okay. Let's get to the
Hey, Greg, do you want to end the poll? Did you just
whoops.
Sorry.
I forgot it. Yeah, the right answer is the repairman, because the repairman, and that's what most people got, that's somebody who they're serving on the board. The fact that they are serving on the board, we're not booking it. Okay. They're a repairman serving on the board. That's not something that you book. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing. All right. Does this change if we provide stipends for volunteers? Well, if you're paying them, then you would book what you paid them. Now, if you pay them less than what they would normally get paid for what they do, then you might be able to book the difference, providing what they do is a specialized service, requires training, and they're trained in that. Okay. Let's see. What about an accountant's participation in the finance committee meetings? That's a stretch, girl, or boy, whoever that is. You're stretching now. Okay. Nice try, though. Is cell phone stipends taxable? Has nothing to do with this webinar at all. Okay. And so I'd have to look at the tax law to see it. It's a question, though. All right. All right. So fair market value. So basically, how you value either the thing, the rent, or the service is fair market value. So how do you determine fair market value? That means what you would get for it if you sold it on the open market. Okay. If it's old stuff like bags of clothing, an old computer, desk, furniture, chairs, old instruments, whatever, you need to figure out what the fair market value is. Now, in some cases, if it's your standard, like, I don't know, clothing and furniture and stuff like that, I like to look on the Goodwill. If you go to Goodwill Values, I believe that there's a donation value guide. Rita May, we're going to answer that in a second. Hold on. So here's your valuation. Okay. And I will tell you, if you get a lot of clothing, it's like we have a client that's a battered women's shelter, and they get clothing, every day. People drop off bags of clothing. They don't take each bag of clothing. Oh, well, here's a dress, $7. Here's some shoes, $6. What they do is they do it for a bag, and then they say, okay, based on this bag, I think a bag is usually worth $75. And that's how they value it. Okay. So obviously, if you get instruments or something like maybe musicians, you're not going to find that on here. So you're going to have to go on to the Googles and figure it out. Okay. Let's see. Rita, we pay below market rent to the city. Should that be included in QuickBooks? So rent that's discounted should be included in QuickBooks. If you're in America, don't put it on your 990, because services and rents don't get included on the 990, only things. All right. And to figure out what the value of the rent is, you're probably going to need to contact a real estate agent. Or if you're in a building, find out what they normally rent the office space out for. But if it's just somebody giving space to you and they don't usually rent to anybody, then you'll need to figure out what a normal square foot rate is and do it that way. Okay. Let's see. Somebody says, technically, yes, any benefit of value the employee receives is taxable. Check your state too. I think there's probably a ways to get out of that, but I'm not going to worry about that here because it's not what we're supposed to be learning about. All right. So that's old stuff. Now, sometimes it's new stuff. Okay. Sometimes it's new stuff. And if it's new stuff, typically they can just tell you how much it is and give you the receipt, give you a copy of the receipt. Then you can value it that way if it's new stuff. All right. So that's the dealio with that. Let's see. Now, we talked about what it is if it's rent. Okay. Now, if it's services, and again, it's got to be a specialized service, which means it requires training and the person who's doing the service is skilled, has that training. What they usually charge. So this is if they're doing it for other people, what they usually charge. A lot of times you can get the person to give you an invoice, either discounted to zero or discounted to what they're actually going to charge you if they're only partially discounting it. But many times, like in my example, I'm a volunteer for a radio station. I'm not going to send them an invoice. So what we did was that we basically looked up what people that do radio shows on community-based radio stations in Atlanta, what they usually get paid per hour. And there was a high and a low, and we just took the middle, and that's what we booked it at. Okay. Let's see. Donated art. Yes, you need an appraisal. If it's big enough, yes. So if paid consultants give us a nonprofit discount, we should be booking that. That's exactly right, Jackie. You absolutely should. All right. So let's go into QuickBooks. We've got 20 minutes before a break. How is everybody doing? Let's put some words in here. I want to see how everybody's feeling. Is everybody good? Is everybody good? Okay, cool. All right. All right, cool. So here we go. Let's go into QuickBooks, and I'm going to tell you how to book it. Now, if you're in the desktop version, you kind of book it the same way, okay? But you'll get the recording later. All right. Thank you. So here we go. I'm going to tell you, there's a few ways to do this, but one of the ways, the easiest way is to do a journal entry. Now, but before we even do a journal entry, I do need you to set up a couple of accounts for me. So where do you go to get the chart of accounts list from? Does anybody know? If you're a newbie, you probably don't. Where do you go to get the chart of accounts list? Anybody know? So you could go over to accounting if you have that here. A lot of people don't. If you go to this gear, this big gear on the right-hand side there to the left of the G, that's where you set things up. Anytime, if you're new to QuickBooks, anytime you ask you to set something up, you probably go here. So I'm going to click it. I'm going to go to chart of accounts, and there's a couple of accounts I need you to create. You see where it says new? You click new. You're going to create not one, not two, but 3, maybe even 4 revenue accounts. Okay. Let me tell you what they are. I'm going to scroll down here where I have them. Where are the revenues? Here they are right here. I have one revenue or income account called in-kind contributions. I have subbed underneath it one for in-kind contributions goods and one for in-kind contribution services. All right. So I have a total of 3 accounts here. I'm never going to point anything to this one. This is just a parent account. It's just there to get a total. It's like a header. This is where I'm going to point the goods. This is where I'm going to point the services. To create the account, for those of you that are new, I'm going to go here and click new. I'm going to make it an income account or revenue. Some people will say revenue, some will say income. I'm going to click it. Do not worry about this detail type. It's irrelevant. Quit worrying about it. It's a meaningless field. Blow it off. And then I'm going to make this in-kind revenue, okay, or whatever it is. And then that's it. You'll never point anything to it at all. And then you create the sub-accounts. Now I've gotten one for goods and I've gotten one for services. I'm going to create one for rent. I'm going to click new. I'm going to make this a revenue account, income account. I'm going to call it in-kind rent. Okay. I'm going to make it a sub-account of the in-kind contributions. It says in-kind contributions, goods and services. So I'm better making in-kind contributions rent. And I even see the numbers here. So I'll make this 4055 is what I'll do. 4055. That's a neat little trick, by the way. When you create a new account and you don't know what the number should be, if you check the sub account, even though you don't want a sub account, you'll get to see all the accounts and you'll be able to figure out what the number should be. But anyway, I'm going to click contributions. Contributions. All right. And whoops. And I think there was a dash there. And then I'm going to click rent, or I'm going to click save and close. And now we'll have our accounts. So that's how you create the account. Shouldn't the in-kind be a sub-account of donations and contributions, Matthew? Absolutely not. Completely not the case. Okay. And as a matter of fact, they came out with a special GAAP pronouncement last year where they want you to show it separated. I want the board of directors to see it separated. I've read that you only count in kind if you otherwise would have paid for the service or good. Is that true? Perhaps, Dominica, but who's to say you wouldn't have paid for it? All right. So I say book it. All right. All right. So anyway, now how do you enter them? I'm going to tell you, when you create a header account, how can you prevent anyone from booking a value to it? So Christine is pointing out that when you go to make a deposit, you could conceivably pick the in-kind header account right there. When you don't want to, I want you to pick one of the subs. Christine, there's nothing you can do. You want a non-postable account. So do I. We all do. It doesn't exist in QuickBooks. So basically, too bad. All right. So Deborah, do you know how to make your Zoom screen bigger? It's on the top right. It's on the top right. But I can certainly, from time to time, Deborah, I can zoom in like this. But you really need to make your screen full. Okay. Well, okay, cool. There you go, Deborah. I'll zoom in for you occasionally. So what I want to do is I want to do a journal entry. That's how I'm going to enter it. You might be wondering, when should I enter my in-kind? Should I enter it every time it happens? Should I enter at the end of the month? Should I enter at the end of the year? Up to you. We'll talk about that later. But however it is, when you're ready to do it, you book it using a journal entry. Can you confirm this? If you said that an in-kind contribution account can be a revenue or an expense account, I never said that. In-kind should be revenue. Some people call it income, but it's a revenue account. It should never be an expense account. Can you set it up under other income? Leslie, you can. I don't like it, but you can. I've tried getting a non-posting account. Yeah. So you're talking about items, Gail, and that's not what we're talking about here, product services. All right. All right. So let's go ahead. I'm almost ready for a break. We got 10 more minutes. Here we go with the journal entry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click plus new. And those of you that are new to QuickBooks, this is where you go to enter transactions manually. There's two ways in QuickBooks Online to add transactions. One of them is by downloading them through the bank feeds. The other way is to enter them manually. This doesn't affect the bank account. You're going to be entering them manually. I'm going to click plus new, and I'm going to click journal entry right there. Okay. Now, some people are pretty upset about a journal entry because they don't understand journal entries at all. So I'm going to give you this little chart here. You've probably seen it before. If you've been taking webinars from me, I end up showing it pretty much every time. It's called Pregnant Alice. Here she is, this chart, and we will send it to you, or actually Nonprofit Quarterly is going to send it to you. It tells you when to debit and credit accounts. It's called Pregnant Alice. She's Alice. She is pregnant. Okay, she's pregnant. If it is an asset or an expense account and you want to make it go up, you debit it. Otherwise, like an income account, if you want to make it go up, you credit it. And if you want to make the account go down, you do the opposite. All right. So this will tell you exactly when to debit and credit stuff. All right. All right. Yeah, it is brilliant. I love it as well. All right. So I'm going to exit out of this. I'm going to go back into Quickety Booksy. I'm going to book this. And let's see, we'll just book it as of today. Seems fine. Actually, you know what? I can't remember how we did that. Let me do one little thing here. Hold on one second. Let me duplicate this. I need to see something before I know what date to put. Hold on a second here. Pay no attention to what I am doing right now. All right, cool. All right, so make sure that this is right. Okay, so I'm going to date this 6/30/25. We'll talk about when you should enter these in a minute. I just want to show you how to enter them now. So let's say that I am booking in kind for services. I'm going to click in kind services right there. Okay. Now, if I want to make an income account go up, do I debit or credit it? Put it in the chat. Do I debit it or credit it? Already told you, you credit. Okay. Cool. All right. So you're going to credit it to make an income account go up. What you put is the value. Okay. So this is a counseling center, and they help the indigent. And the counselors are donating their counseling services. So they would normally charge $100. They're charging us only $20 an hour to see our clients. And so that $80 an hour, we need to book that as in kind. We could book it at the end of the month. We could book it at the end of the week. We could book it at the end of the year. We'll talk about when later. So I'm going to go ahead and click, let's see, it was 10 hours times $80 an hour. Press tab, does the math for you. Okay. Candy, the benefit of booking the in-kind contributions is, first of all, it more accurately reflects both the money, the contributions that you got in, and the true cost of running your organization. All right. If this organization didn't book the value of the in-kind donated services from the counselors, you would not be able to see what the true benefit is, or what it truly costs to run the organization. Okay. So we'll just say this would be 10 hours at 80 an hour. Okay. And then this person, they're giving us a donation. All right. And so we probably want to, if they're not already in the customer list, we want to put them in the customer or donor list. Okay. I'll just put it to here, Irene Lapointe. My mom was named Irene. I don't think I would go to her for therapy though. Anyway, so if you don't know this, you need to. Classes are a feature in QuickBooks that allows you to break your expenses up into 3 buckets: program, admin, and fundraising. Houses of worship don't need to worry about this, but everybody else does. So you're supposed to be creating a class for each one of your programs with an additional one for admin and fundraising. This is for the Counseling Center program. Now, what is the other side of this? See, what this does is this basically records the fact that I got income in of $800. It wasn't cash, but it was $800. Every transaction has to have 2 sides, okay? So there's a credit side, there has to be a debit side. What is the other account that I should put here? It needs to be the expense account that you would normally put it to had you written a check for it, okay? So in this case, I have an expense account that I created called Counselors, and that's where I'll put it. All right. Now, sometimes what they give you is a fixed asset, like they gave you equipment, and that may need to be booked on the balance sheet as a fixed asset. So then you wouldn't put it to an expense account, you put it to a fixed asset account. The main thing is you point it to the same account you would have pointed it to had they written you a check. So I just want you to stop for a second, and I want you to think about this. I really want you to understand how in-kind contributions affect your books. So an expense account has gone up by $800, and an income account has gone up by $800. What's the net effect on our profit and loss? Put it in the chat. 0. Okay. So then why the heck are we even entering it? So that we can see the true value of the donations in and the true cost of running the organization. All right. The other thing is, if what they're giving you is a programmatic type expense, then when you book it, it's going to increase your program expenditure as a percentage of your total expenditure. And that's going to make you look good to funders. Okay. All right. No, it's Candy. This 800 is the additional amount that we're booking, because the real cost we should have paid for these 10 hours is $1,000. We only paid 200. This is the other 800 being booked. Now, here's something that's really cool. You see this attachment? If you click it, you can attach things to this. So if they did give you an invoice for this, you can literally attach a PDF of the invoice. Okay. Jenny, we don't book any in-kind contributions. What are the repercussions of not doing this? You're not accurately reflecting the true cost of running your organization and the true value of the donations that you're getting. Your budget looks smaller than it actually is. It may keep you from getting into the higher grants that you might be able to get. Some grants have a matching component, and they'll let in-kind count towards the match. You're not tracking that. There's all kinds of problems with it. Is there a file limit in the QB program in online? There is not. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this transaction. Okay. And I'm going to see what this looks like on a budget to actual report. Okay. Because there's one issue. If you want to do that, Carolyn, we can talk about that at the end, okay? And Leslie does the same thing. We will talk about that at the end, Leslie. These are specialized things that don't relate to anybody else. We got 10 more minutes. We're taking a break. Y'all hang with me. We're going to do a couple special things at the end. We're almost done. Now, what is the effect of booking these in-kind contributions? Well, let me go ahead and refresh this screen. And now you will see, here's my in-kind contribution of $800. There's no budget line for it. See, this is typically the report you give the board. If you enter your in-kind contributions throughout the year, then when you give your actual to budget for the board, it may screw up the way your actual to budget looks, okay? In this case, there's an income side, $800. The budget is 0, because we don't usually budget for in-kind, but the board's not going to be upset about that. But the expense side, remember I told you to point it to the same expense account that you would have entered it in had you written a check. And so now it looks like, since we didn't budget for our in-kind, it looks like we overspent. So for that reason, what some people do is they wait to book in-kind till the end of the year, because at that time, all year long, the board won't freak out. And then at the end of the year, you can book it for the tax return and for the auditor. Other people, if you are an organization that gets a lot of in-kind, we book, when we do the budget, we enter the budget to include in-kind. Now, a third option, and I know a couple of people do this here, is they have their own special in-kind expense accounts as well. I personally don't like it. Makes your P&L bigger. But yes, Stacy, I like budgeting. Okay. Could you add in-kind expense? Never mind. Okay. So I'm way ahead of you on this. Okay. So there's a couple of things I need to teach. I'm going to teach 3 things, and they're kind of advanced. So I'm going to take a little sip here. And after I teach them, we're going to take our break. Okay. And these are particularly for the fancy people. We're just about to take a break. Don't go anywhere. I'm about to blow your mind. Okay. All right. One, let's say that it was a discounted rate. And you're like, why do I do a journal entry? Because now I got to enter a bill or write a check for the amount I paid them. And then I got to do a journal entry for the in-kind stuff. All right. So instead, this is an alternative to doing a journal entry. This will only work if there actually is a bill or a check you have to write. Some people enter expenses. Some people do checks. Some people do bills. You can do this no matter what. I'm going to do a check. And let's just pick the person that we're paying. Where is Irene? It was Irene that I was paying. Let me just type her name. Whoops, Irene Lapointe. All right. And so basically what you're going to do is you're going to put in counselor's expense, you're going to put the whole $1,000. So remember that example I was talking about where they should have charged us $100 an hour. They're only charging $20. I'm going to give you a different way of entering it, basically entering it at the same time you're paying the $20. Okay. So we're paying $20 times 10 hours. So that's $200. And that was for the counseling center. Then I'm going to enter another $200, $800. This is the amount that we are not paying her. Counseling center. And actually, I didn't even really need to do it on a separate line. I could have just put the whole $1,000 right here. Okay. And then the next line, I'm going to put, and this is, people don't think you can do this, in-kind services. I'm going to put a minus 800. So this is a substitute. Instead of doing a check or a bill for what you owe the person and then doing a journal entry for the entrance, for the difference, you can just do it right here. So what's going to happen is the bank account is going to be affected by the $200 you're paying. Counselor's expense goes up by $1,000, and then you have an in-kind contribution income of $800. Isn't that kind of cool? So I'm going to go ahead and that's one thing that I want to show you. Does the 1,000 show on their 1099? Really good point. If you're going to give them a 1099, that's why you need to put 200 here. And the other, yeah, that's going to be an issue. So if they're giving 1099s, you're probably going to need to do the journal entry. All right. Myra likes that way better. Yes, it certainly works better because then you don't have to do two different things. Keeping going. We got 5 more minutes. So I'm going to teach something that only is relevant for some of you. Okay. Who here enters transactions using a sales receipt or an invoice? Who enters donations using a sales receipt or an invoice? Okay. Some people are used to entering donations using a sales receipt. If you don't know how to use sales receipts, take the 3-day webinar. They're really cool. But otherwise, people that like using sales receipts, they want to be able to use sales receipts to record the donation as well. So what you have to do, I'm not going to get into I'm going to show this, but I'm not going to teach people that don't already know about sales receipts. So just bear with me. This is only going to take a second. Sales receipts use product services. You can't put accounts on there. You can only put product services on there. So what you want to do, if you want to use sales receipts to record in kind, you're going to go to the product service list. I'm going to create 2 sales receipts. Service, in kind, service, income. I'm going to point it to that in-kind service account. I'm going to save and new. I'm going to create another one called counselors. Did I spell it right? I don't think so. Counselors donated time. And I'm going to point it, sorry. I'm going to point it to the counselor's expense account. All right. And then I'm going to save and close. So now I can do sales receipts. I'm going to do a sales receipt for whoever the person is that gave me a donation. I'm going to pick the in-kind services. I'll put $20,000 there, so it'll be easy to see. This will be for counseling center. And then I'm going to pick that counselors donated time. I'm going to put the minus 20 here. You put it as a minus. So the sales receipt ends up being 0, which is good because you never really got any cash. You can just say that it's being deposited into the checking account. I'm going to click the counselors, and that's the way that you would handle that, okay? I'm going to save and close. Now, what are the benefits of that? Well, one of the main benefits, let me go back to that sales receipt, is if you're used to using sales receipts, I want to see who the person was. There it is, Matthew Bove. If you're used to using sales receipts, then you're probably used to going into your customer or donor list. And when you go to Matthew Bove, you're going to see all of the transactions that are there. Now, of course, that sales receipt's a $0 sales receipt, so you won't see it there. That's interesting. I thought that you would. You see it, but it says a 0. That's unfortunate. But it will definitely be on the reports. Let's see here. Yeah, there's the 20,800. There's the 20,800 there. Okay. All right, cool. So a lot of people got stuff out of that. That's cool. The only other thing is gift cards. Who has gift cards? Put it in the chat. Who has gift cards? Who has gift cards? All right, cool. Now, if somebody gives you a gift card and you are going to give it out to your client, your customer, the people you're helping, like you get gift cards to use at Publix or something, people give it to you, you give it out. Who does that? Anybody does that? Okay. If it's used by the internal staff, then that's one thing. If it's given out, that's another. Okay. So if it's given out, if it's given out, then what I do is I create an expense account in the chart of accounts. New. And I'm going to make it an expense account. And I'm going to call it client gift card support. I don't know what you want to call it, but basically it's client support. It's support for, the women or the kids or whoever it is that needs it. Okay. Save and close. And then that's what you do your journal entry to. Okay. We'll do the journal entry. It's an in-kind, and it's a thing, probably. So you would make it a good, and then you make it go right back out to that client gift card support. Okay. Now, if, however, raffle, if for a raffle, don't book that either. Just like the auction items, we'll get to that in a second. If, however, it is used for internal use, then it becomes like they gave you money. And so what you do is create a bank account plus create a bank account called gift cards. All right. So then when somebody gives you a gift card for $100, then you can record it just like a regular deposit. But the deposit goes to the gift card account, and it's an individual contribution, and it is, maybe the gift card was $1,000. I'll put it to the fundraising class and I'll click save and close. So then you've got these gift cards as a bank account. So then as you use the bit cards, we click plus new, and then we can literally write a check or enter an expense whenever we use it. Now, I like using a check because what I do, I say, okay, I can say who I'm paying. I'm paying with a gift card. I can put it to the actual account that it was for. I can put the dollar amount that it was for. I can put a class. And I like the check because there's going to be a check number associated with this. I can literally write this on the receipt and attach the receipt to this little check screen. I click save and close. Now, whenever you look at gift cards, it's the real amount left on the gift cards, okay? All right, I hope everybody is back. I see some questions in the chat. I'm going to answer them. I do have a poll though that I'm going to get you guys to answer first. Let's see. I already did that. No, I think I don't have any more polls. I don't want to talk about polls anymore. Okay, so here we go. Let's see. I'm going back to these questions here. I do not look like Dr. Dubrow, Stacy. I do not. Linda is really wanting me to cover budgeting in classes, and we do that in the 3-day webinar. She says her feature doesn't work. I'm quite sure it does work, unless you have the wrong version of QuickBooks. Let's see. Jesse, we have some donations, contributions, income account. We also have a fundraising income account. One of our fundraisers is a walkathon. Is there a problem booking that as a fundraising income rather than donations and contributions? There's not, except you do want to segregate. So you actually have a group of income and expense accounts for fundraisers. I have a whole topic in it in my 3-day webinar series. And anybody who actually gives you a donation, you do want to segregate that out. And then when we do the tax return, we need to know how much of that, the ticket to get in, is actually a donation versus the cost of what they get in return. But I wouldn't worry about booking that in QuickBooks. Let's see. Fundraising shouldn't be a sub account of donations or contributions. It needs to be its own thing. Christine has a Habitat for Humanity. She wants a special session. So I actually have a client that I audit every year that's a Habitat for Humanity, probably the hardest nonprofit of all. Let's see. Anybody else got a question? We have several funds. I'd use the class feature for that. There's a whole topic in that also in the 3-day. Tips for nonprofits moving to accrual. I basically, you just put in what you owe as of the day you're moving, but there's more to it than that. And I don't have time to talk about that either because we've got to move on. I will say though, if you guys want help beyond the content that's in this webinar, one of the ways you can do it, if you click on webinars, there is a 3-day webinar series. It's happening for online users on May 31st, June 1st, and June 2nd. It's 2.5 hours a day. We're going to take 2 breaks for that one. It's just like this, except a little bit slower. We're going to baby you through everything you need to know about Clickety Books. And if you click on it from the website, here's everything covered in day 1. Here's everything covered in day 2. In day 3, here's something about special fundraising events. Here's something about credit card activity, getting thank you letters. Somebody was talking about the different ways to enter income. We cover that in day 2. Day 1 is setup. We talk about what your accounts need to look like, all kinds of stuff there. We're giving you $40 off if you sign up to come to that online series with a coupon. Got to sign up by Saturday, but we'll talk about it again tomorrow. And the other way to get help, tech support. With tech support, you can sign up, and I don't know why it's looking like this, but if you sign up for a year, for the online edition, it's usually $4.99. We're going to give you $200 off of that, okay? PayPal income and fees, we take care of that at the 3-day as well because you want the fees separated out. I get that, but I'm wondering, did you guys see what the topics are? Maybe we should have given this webinar a different name because these are very specialized topics that we're covering in this webinar series. But I'm really glad that you came. I hope you like learning. Let's continue. And then maybe tomorrow, if I have time, I'll cover some of this other stuff, or you can come to the webinar series. So let's move back into the deck here. Couple of things you need to know. When do I need to give the donor an acknowledgement? So we're talking about you got an in-kind contribution. When should you give the donor a thank you letter? Now, what I'm going to tell you is going to freak you out. So listen carefully. This is kind of a big deal. The donor only needs something from the charity if it's a good that they gave you, not a service, just a good. Not a service, not rent, just a good. Because you cannot deduct, as a donor, I cannot deduct the donation of services that I give to you, only goods. So first of all, you only need to get a letter to them if it's a good, okay? And the value is more than $250 of what they gave you. That's when you have to give them something, okay? Now, this is what freaks you out. I said you have to give them something. You actually don't. You are not legally required to give the donor anything if they just straight up give you something and don't give anything in return. If it's an in-kind donation, even if it's money, you don't have to give them a thank you letter if you didn't give them anything in return of value, okay? Now, they have to get something from you if it's more than $250, okay? But you don't have to give it to them. Now, why would you not give them a thank you? Of course you would give them a thank you. But I tell you this because I know there are a few of you here that don't give thank you letters and you're worried about it, and you've been worried about it for years, but not worried enough to do anything because you don't have time, okay? Can I get an amen? Put it in the chat. You're not breaking the law. You are okay, all right? Don't worry, all right. So, so anyway, I tell you this, you're not required to give it to them, but of course you should give it to them, okay? You should describe the gift. This is the other thing you need to understand. If they give you a thing and you give them a thank you, I am fine with you describing what they gave you. Do not put the value in the thank you, okay? Because what you value at internally is your business and has nothing to do with what the donor values it at. If you give them a letter and you put the value in there, then you are locking your donor into that value. And if a lot of times you'll get donors and they'll say, please give me a thank you letter, put it in valued at $10,000 so I can write it off on my taxes. You never want to do that. You don't put a value in, because whatever they deducted on their taxes is between them and the IRS. What you do not want is you do not want the IRS getting a letter or seeing a letter when they're auditing your donor that has your letterhead on it and says something's valued at higher than what the IRS thinks it should be valued at. Now you're in cahoots with the donor trying to cheat the IRS. Do not value it, okay? All right. Don't say the amount, just say what they gave you. Charity name and EIN, charity's tax exempt status. These are the things that should be on the letter. Linda, I would absolutely thank somebody who gave me $10,000 in cash, but technically you don't have to, okay? Date of the contribution, date of description, and a statement saying there were no goods or services exchanged for this contribution. Here's a sample of the letter that you would give. I do not give this letter out of QuickBooks. Remember that thing I said, don't give the value? Think about it. If you go to drop clothing off at Goodwill or Salvation Army or furniture, do they give you a letter with values in it? No, you fill that stuff out. See, internally, they figure out what they're going to book the value at. It has nothing to do with what the donor is going to value it at, okay? All right. Okay. So we're moving on to tracking volunteers. Okay. Now, what if they give you money? Technically, you don't have to give them a thank you, even if they give you $1 million. But you absolutely should. And what should be in the letter? Everything there, including the dollar amount. Instead of the description, you would put the dollar amount. Okay. All right. No, donated services they cannot deduct it. They cannot deduct it. All right. So you shouldn't be giving them a letter at all. I know some of them will be mad. Okay. So Shelley says, Shelley, is that true? In Canada, you can write off the value of services? I don't believe it. I don't think so. But anyway, all right. Tracking volunteers. Thanking them. They do require you to thank them? Oh, okay. All right. So how many of you have volunteers? Go ahead and put in the chat the number of volunteers you have. Put the number, and you can guesstimate the number of 170, 50, 75, 200, 1,500, 100, 7, 115. Yes, so we got a lot of people have a lot of volunteers. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that it's an important thing to track your volunteers. And very few nonprofits actually do it. Now, there are apps out there that will track volunteers, but who wants to pay for that? You can do it in QuickBooks, and that's what I'm going to teach you. But I did want to show you, let me go ahead and put a plus here. All right, right on the front page of the tax return that you file, I know in Canada it's not this tax return, and I know if you're a house of worship, you don't file taxes at all. But for the rest of you that file a 990, you will see right on the front page, one of the questions is total number of volunteers, estimate if necessary, and they're looking for a number there. And what's important about putting it on your 990 is that that 990 is available to every single person on the face of the planet through a website called, put it in the chat. What's the website called? What's the website called? Where you can see everybody's 990 in the world. GuideStar. There you go. Anybody want to take a plunge? And I'm going to sign in. It's easy to create an account. It's free. Didn't cost me any money at all. And then if you give me the name of your organization, I'll look up your 990 and we can see everybody. And you just put the search here. Lie for families? It must be line. Lifeline. Lifeline for families. That's one thing you should do. Look this up. All right. So is this it right here in Texas? Is that it? Okay, cool. So here it is. I click on it. Form 990. Here's their 990 for 2020. You can do this for anything. So let's see. They guesstimated, let me zoom in, that they had, let me move this over, 50 volunteers. Okay. So there you go. And funders will look at that. Enough of that. All right. So let's go back into QuickBooks. What happened to QuickBooks? Where is my QuickBooks? Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. So I am going to go to a different data file. I got to switch to a different company. And then I'm going to show you where to track the volunteers. So right there. All right. Now, we don't make our 990 available on GuideStar. As I understand, it's not required. So Jenny, I didn't know that you could tell them not to include it. Most nonprofits don't even know about it. It just appears. And it's still on irs.gov, Matthew says. By the way, the deadline, if you're December 31, your deadline is May the 15th. Okay. All right. So, okay. You have to upload it on GuideStar? Seriously? I don't think so. I feel like GuideStar actually just gets it. I don't think you have to upload it. He says you do. I don't know. They say you have to upload it. I'm shocking. Oh, they do get it. They get it from the IRS as well, it looks like. You don't have to upload it. Yep, you don't have to upload it. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. So let's stop that topic for a second. I'm going to take a drink. We got about 30 minutes left. And we want to talk about tracking volunteers. Now, volunteers, those are the people that do the unspecialized services, right? And we want to go ahead and we want to at least track their hours. So in order to do that, I want to do it in QuickBooks. And I need to put the volunteers in a list, all right? Now, there are 3 lists in QuickBooks where you can put names, all right? One of the lists is where you put your donors. That's the customer list. Some people have even changed that, or yours might already be changed to where this says donors. It might say members. It might say students. It might say clients. But that's for the people that give you money. It's for your donors. Okay. Then the second list is expenses, vendors. This is where you put people you pay money to. And if you want to get 1099s out, you put them there. Now, it used to be, okay, that I would put my volunteers in the vendor list, all right? And then I could enter time for them and I could track them and all this kind of stuff. Because the 2 big things I want to teach you about your volunteers is, first of all, getting a nice contact list of them, but then also seeing the time, how many hours they spend in different areas, okay? In order to do that, you need to be able to enter time. Now, it used to be that you could enter time for vendors in QuickBooks, all right? You didn't even have to do anything special. You could enter time for vendors in QuickBooks, all right? When there's a program out there that's been there for years. It's an app that works with QuickBooks Online, and it's called T-Sheets. Has anyone ever heard of T-Sheets before? But it's a timesheet feature that imports in to QuickBooks, all right? It got so big that QuickBooks, Intuit, they bought timesheets a few months ago. So now they own timesheets. And what they did was they basically dumbed down the timesheet feature within QuickBooks, and they've made you have to purchase T-Sheets, which is now called QuickPay or QuickTime, in order to be able to really use the full functionality that you used to be able to do with timesheets within QuickBooks. And it's like $20 a month plus $8 a person. So I'm not interested in you. I don't want to try and sell you on using this QuickTime thing that used to be T-Sheets. However, there is still a basic timesheet in QuickBooks, and I'm going to use that to enter hours, okay? But here's the thing. If you have QuickBooks Online, and you do, that's why you're here, and you don't pay extra for this QuickTime thing, you can still enter time, but only for employees, not for vendors. So if you want to use the timesheet feature to track your volunteers in QBO, you need to enter your volunteers in the employee section, all right? And you say, well, I don't even use employees. Great, you can use them for this. You don't have to have payroll in order to do it, all right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to this little left-hand bar, and where it says payroll employees, I'm gonna set up my volunteers. Now, there's a couple of rules that I want you to follow. See, I actually use the payroll in this data file. So I've got my regular employees, and then I have my volunteers. Notice how I put a VOL in front of them. So this is where you put your volunteers, okay? No. If you're not paying, if you don't pay them anything and you're not adding that, they won't charge you for that, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click add an employee. Now it's saying turn on payroll. I don't have payroll, so I'm not going to turn it on. I click not right now. And then I'm just going to pick somebody. Okay, so pick somebody with an easy name here. I'll do Raquel Garcia. So I'm going to click, how do you spell that? R-A-Q. So R-A-Q-U-E-L. And then the last name, I'm going to put V-O-L dash, and then her real last name, Garcia. I'm going to go to the display name, and I'm going to click the drop down and make it be last name, comma, first name. And then I can put the rest of her information there, okay? Rock at, I don't know, gmail.com. Put her phone number there. This is Raquel's actual phone number. So don't call her. We'll say that's her only phone. It's her cell phone. So I'll copy it over there. Here's where you put the address. I'll just put an address here. Well, actually, no, I don't want to do that because it's going to change out. All right. Now, there's a couple of things here. One of the things about the employee list that isn't as good as the vendor list, but again, we can't enter time for vendors unless we have a paid timesheet thing from QuickBooks, is we can have specialized or customized fields. So, but I do like the fields that are here. Employee ID, I like to put what the person does for a living. And the reason why is because then I'll be able to, if I need a lawyer, I'll be able to get a report that shows me all the lawyers that are volunteers. There might be people to use. Hire date, I like to put the date she started volunteering, 11/15/21. Okay. Release date, this is something that's a trick. I want you to put a release date, pick one date, make it years in the future, and have every volunteer have the same release date and put the release date in when you set them up. 01/01/2035. That's just the date that I picked. You'll see why I do that in a minute, okay? I can put her real birth date there. Raquel, you want me to tell you your birthday? You want to tell me your birthday? Raquel's like, I don't think so. Just give me the month. Give me the month, Raquel. Take a guess. Yeah, good job. Okay, so it is, it's November. I'm going to say the 5th, and I'm going to say 1992. How's that? Okay. Raquel says she loves me. Okay, so I am going to save. All right. Now, remember, the release date needs to be the same for everybody that's a volunteer. Okay, so here she is. Let me go ahead and click on another one of these to make sure that I got the right. Yep, 1/1/2035. Perfect. All right. So 2 things that are important. 1, I want to be able to get a report at a glance of my volunteers. 2, I want to enter time for them. Let's do the first one. Okay. What is the release date again? Well, in general, for employees, the release date would be the date that you got rid of them, the date that you fired them. So typically you would leave this blank until you fired them. We are co-opting this field and using it for something else, which will become apparent in a minute. So you just pick one date, make it years in the future, and use that exact same date for every one of your volunteers. So every one of your volunteers has a VOL in front of the name, and every one of your volunteers has the same release date, even though they're not really released. Okay? All right. So now what I'm going to do, first, let me build a report. Okay? I'm going to go to reports. Now, if you're new to QuickBooks, whenever you want to report, you go to reports and you're going to see these 4 tabs: standard, custom, management, and multi. Click standard. These are the standard reports that you can open up, change them around, make them like you like them, and then save them. And once you save them, they'll be in the custom report section. And that's where you go to look for your various reports that you want out of QuickBooks. So once you get good at QuickBooks, you'll really only be going to the custom reports because you'll be saving all the reports you want there, okay? But first, we're going to start with standard. and I'm going to tell you where to go to get a list of volunteers. I'm going to go to, these are in the employee list. You see this thing that says employee contact list? Yes, board members are volunteers. Yes, so I would include those as well. So I'm going to click employee contact list. It's going to give me every single person that's an employee, even the people that are real employees and the people that are volunteers. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to customize this report so it just gives me volunteers. So I'm going to click customize. You see this thing that says filter? So I'm going to filter so that it only includes my volunteers. All right. So let's click on the filters. These are all the filters you can choose from. Employee name, created date, last modified date, hired date, release date, and deleted. Anybody suggest a field that we should use to filter so it only yes, the release date. That's why I wanted you to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click custom, and I'm going to put that release date 01/01-2035. 01/01-2035. I'm also going to go to the header footer, and I'm going to change the name of it because instead of an employee contact list, it's my volunteer contact list. I'm going to click run report. Now it only gives me the volunteers, and when I add new volunteers, as long as I put that same release date, it'll always. So Bridget wants me to stop and tell you the topics for tomorrow. Bridget, do you not care about this? We're doing restricted grants. We're doing a bunch of reporting stuff tomorrow. No, it'll only include, because that's why I put the date, Kathleen, at 1/1/35. So it only includes the people that were released as of 1/1/35. All right. So now what I'm going to do is remember that employee ID number. I'm going to go to change columns, and I can add employee ID number. And the reason why I want to add it to this report, and I'll even move it up so that it's right next to employees, and I'll click run. Look at that. Now I can see what people do. So it's very easy to see, and I can actually even sort by. I can sort by the employee ID, and now run the report. So now all the lawyers are together. Isn't that kind of cool? All right. Yes, you'll get a recording for tomorrow. All right. So it's 3:37. And I'm trying to think of what else that we need to talk about today. There's something I want to wait. Wouldn't it be important to know what volunteer? Oh, I forgot the time. We got to do the times. Okay, let's do the entering the time. Thank you. How do we enter hours? All right. So here's how to enter hours. You're going to go to this plus new, and you're going to go down to time entry. Now, those of you that actually have purchased a timesheet feature from Intuit, used to be called T-Sheets, now it's called QuickTime or something like that, or maybe it's called QuickBooks Time. You're going to see something underneath here that says weekly and activity, and you can pick one of those to enter your time. I'm going to just click time entry. So if you didn't pay for anything, you'll get one that says time entry. You click it and you enter your time. All right. So anybody that is on the employee list, you'll be able to enter time for them. So here's Raquel. I'm going to click her. Now, it wants you to enter time by the day. That's insanity. I know that's not what you're going to want to do. So you have a couple of different possibilities. One, you can wait till the end of the month, enter there. Why do we need to track the volunteer time? So now I mentioned this before, number of reasons. One is on your audit and on your tax return in the program descriptions, you can put the number of hours people volunteered for. And Nell, if you have ever gone for any grant funding, it's what they want to know, the number of volunteer hours. It's really important now. All right. But anyway, so instead of doing it every day, which I know is crazy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click custom and I'm just going to enter it at the end of the month. Okay, so on the last day of the month, I'll enter the time for that month. I'm going to enter on the last day of the month, I'm going to enter the time. Now, what's really neat about this is not only can we enter the hours, but if you want to, you click add work details and it'll actually allow you to enter the type of work they did. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to go to a different list in QuickBooks. All right. Now, the list that I'm going to go to is called a product service list. This is a list that most of you probably don't know about, but it will allow you to track the type of work your volunteers did. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have this question here because I want to see. Here's a poll. Have you worked with product services in QBO? Yes or no? I'm going to go to the gear. I'm going to go to product services and let's see who all's worked with it and who isn't. And I'm doing this on purpose so that, and while I'm waiting for the answers, I will tell you the only time most people work with products and services is those are the lines that goes on the sales receipt and the invoice. So if you never use products and services, it's probably because you don't do sales receipts and you don't do invoices in QuickBooks, which is fine. But those product services, they can actually be used on timesheets as well, okay? So a third of you, let me go ahead and end the poll. A third of you don't use products and services, okay? You are for this. So I want you to add a product service for each one of your types of volunteering that occur. So you'll see I created one called admin support and another one called Go Green Guidance Tours. And I did these two because that's two different types of volunteering. Somebody put in the chat a type of volunteering that you'd like to track. Linda, you'd find the time because they would give it to you. Clinical, somebody said clinical, somebody said ushers. I'm going to do ushers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, I'm going to go to the top left-hand button, products, and let me go to it again. For those of you who've never been there, you go to the gear, you go to products and services, you say to yourself, I have no idea what this is, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just using it to put my types of volunteering. I'm going to click on new. It's going to ask you what type of product service it is. Pick service. And then I'm going to call this ushers. And then they force you to put it to an income account. Doesn't matter what income account you point it to, just stick it somewhere. You're never really going to use it, not on transactions. I'm going to save and close. And actually, I'm going to make it a sub of volunteer services. I'm going to click save and close. That's something you don't necessarily need to do. So now I've got ushers. All right. So now what I'm going to do is let's go back to where you enter time. I probably need to refresh. Let me see if I need to refresh the screen. Let's see if ushers is here. Yeah, I need to refresh this screen. So let me refresh the screen. Every time you make a change in QuickBooks Online, you got to refresh the screen. So I'm going to go down to Raquel. And it's not like you have to do this every time. I mean, you're just showing you it while I'm in the middle of doing a transaction. Custom, I'll make this May the 31st because I'm just doing it for the last day at the end of the month. I'm going to put she worked her volunteer time, which she told me was 15 hours. And she was doing ushering. Okay. and it was for a fundraising event. And then I can just simply click done, and her time will be there. Save. Okay. Now, if she spent more time in other areas, you can enter those as additional hours. You can pick either the same day or a different day. You see, I'm just doing it kind of at the end of the month. I do not have time on the sidebar. I will show you how to get that in a second. So I'm going to click a different day. I'm going to click add work details. Now, listen very carefully. How many of you have matched? Well, you know what? I'll wait about that. I just want to finish this. All right. So we've entered some time. I'm going to save it. The time that we've entered, this 15 hours, I'm going to save it. Okay. Save and close. And now I'm going to give you a report on time. Now, if you want to know how to get this time thing up, you go to Gear, you go to Account and Settings, and there's a little area here called Time. If you click it, you should see something there. You know what? I don't even know that you have to turn this on. If you don't see it at all, what I want you to do is go to Account and Settings, go to Billing and Subscription, and tell me what version of the software you're using. It'll tell you in the Billing and Subscription section. You go to Billing and Subscription. I'm using QBO Advanced. Okay. This will work, Alex, even if you don't use payroll. I don't have payroll turned on at all. You should be able to use this in QuickBooks Plus, Deborah. You absolutely should. All right. I'm wondering whether you've got that business view on. If you click on the gear, does this say switch to accountant view or switch to business view? But anyway, let's go ahead and show you a time report. I'm going to click on the reports. I'm going to go down to the bottom where the employees are, and I'm going to click time activities employee detail. This is basically the main place where you go to get the number of hours, okay? You should still have it, Deborah. I'm going to click time activities by employee detail. Okay. I'm going to make the date range this month. I'm going to run the report and look at what we have. We have a lot. First of all, we have each employee. We have what type of volunteering they did. At the very bottom here, we see the total. Now, look what I can do here. This is really cool. It's grouped by employee. Probably don't need that. But what I can do is I can group it by product service. I'm going to click Run Report. Look at this. This is how many hours was on admin. This is how many hours was for guidance tours. This is how many hours were for ushers. Isn't that kind of cool? Trina, I would get advanced. It's better, but you don't have to have it to do this. No, Jenny, if you track volunteers in Salesforce, then you might not necessarily need this. No. Okay. We have some employees added as vendors. I can't add them in the employees section. Yes, you can. Put the VOL in front of the name and it'll think it's a different name. Okay. All right. So now check this out. This is really kind of cool. I can also group it by class. Remember, we use class to track the programs, so I can see what's going on and how many volunteer hours are in each program. Now, the last thing that I want to point out is I'm going to go to, let me go back to that. Let me group it by product service again. All right. So I'm going to go to the Go Green Guidance Center. I'm going to somebody else's timesheet. I can just double click to get to it. And I want you to see that in addition to pointing it to a class and pointing it to an item, You can also point it to a customer or a donor. Now, if you do that, and that's what I did for the Help for You Grant Foundation, and what this is, by putting your grants in the customer list, and that's what we're going to learn tomorrow, but by putting your grants in the customer list, if you have matching grants or grants that require a match, and they'll let in-kind time count towards the match, so let volunteer hours count towards the match, you can actually assign the hours to a grant as well. Jessica, this is what I covered for 20 minutes at the beginning of this, Jessica. It does not work for contractors. You have to put them in the employee list, okay? All right. Okay. So even if you don't pay them. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the name. Yes, even if you don't bill out or anything, you can, a lot of grantors, they'll let volunteer hours count towards meeting a match. They give you the dollar amount per hour that they'll count, and then you can point it to the grant. And then when I look at the report here, let me go back to the report that I was at. Let me get to, there we go. What I can do is I can group it by grant, basically, which is customer or donor. Yours might be called customers, yours might be called donors. It's this list over here, right there. So I'm going to click Run Report. And now the Help for You Grant Foundation, I have 47 hours. And if you put the rate in that the funder will let count towards the match, it'll multiply it by the hours. And now I've met my match up to $1,081. Okay. What if you have two grants running with a single grantor? Now that doesn't make sense. Oh, each grant needs to be its own name in the list, and we'll learn that tomorrow. We'll learn that tomorrow. Each grant, yeah, isn't that kind of cool? All right. So this is what I want to do. I don't have time to teach the last topic, but I do want to go ahead and get you thinking so you get ready for tomorrow. Okay. So I want you to think very carefully here. I'm going to teach you something that's really important. And that is, I'm going to go to my little slide here. Something that I need to teach for you. All right. So I'm going to stop. We've talked about volunteers. We've talked about in-kind contributions. That's mainly what we've been doing. Oh, what GL account did you use for volunteers, ushers? So Kevin, it really doesn't matter because you're never going to use it on transactions. What I do, what I would suggest is to create an income account called Should Be Zero and point that product service to the Should Be Zero account because you're never supposed to use it on anything but timesheets. Okay. Let's see. Joe wanted to know, why doesn't the name show up? You can add the name as a field. It should show up. Let's see. Anwar, what about parents who either volunteer or pay a fee if they don't have time? Do we have to track their hours regardless, or only when they exceed the number of hours required per year? No, we need to track their hours regardless. We need to track their hours regardless, Anwar. All right. So 3 things that you need to track when you enter an expense. Let me just stop for a second and kind of reset. First of all, how is everybody feeling? We got about 8 minutes left. Don't leave. I'm teaching you something really important. How is everybody feeling? Is there anybody that's overwhelmed or freaked out? Chip is Chip doesn't feel that great. Victor needed more. Okay. Jessica's a little overwhelmed. Most people feel good. So I know that I'm kind of in the right. Somebody's freaked out. Someone has a headache. So, oh, good. The webinar didn't make you sleepy. All right. Need help with Canadian rules. So, Shelley, why don't you email us and I'll research tax law on Canadian rules and help you out. Yes, Veronica, if you are new to QBO, you might be a little overwhelmed. Same with Christine. Okay, so I'm going to teach you basics right now, Lisa, all of you. So listen carefully. Okay. When you enter, if you are a nonprofit, whenever you enter an expense, there are three things that you need to track about that expense. Now, the expense could be payroll, it could be rent, it could be supplies. You could have done it with a check, a bill, a credit card, doesn't matter, however you paid it. Anytime you pay, it needs three things you need to tell QuickBooks about it, okay? The first thing you need to tell QuickBooks is what the natural category is. By natural category, I mean, what was the expense for? Some people call it the object of the expense. I call it natural category because it's basically the natural way you think about expenses. And most people understand that when they enter an expense, they got to tell QuickBooks whether it's supplies, travel, rent, utilities, postage, printing, client support, salaries, payroll taxes, whatever those things are, it's the object, it's the what of the expense, okay? So that is what your expense accounts need to be in QuickBooks. When you go to the gear and you click the chart of accounts, that's what your expense accounts need to be that are down here. They are the natural way of thinking about expenses, okay? And even regular businesses have to do that, okay? Now, where do you enter that? Well, if you enter things manually, you do it in this field here that says category. It's really expense account, but you do it here, okay? Equipment rental, okay? If you download transactions, then you do it in the download, okay? Now, if you are a nonprofit, and I assume you are, and you are not a house of worship, there's a second thing you need to track, and that is the program that it related to. Some people call it the function of the organization, the why you spent it. You see, nonprofits are there for a reason. So I have a client, they're a battered women's shelter, really. They have two programs. They have the shelter itself, but then they have a hotline that they provide for support services for their own people, but then for other people around the city. So they have two programs that support their mission. And so I need to know when I enter an expense, yes, it was for equipment rental, but which program did it go for? You're supposed to use the class for that. Program, program, program. Now, if it doesn't go for a program at all, like for instance, the cost of coming to this webinar, then you're supposed to put it to admin if it's administrative in nature, which is what this is, or if it's fundraising in nature, you put it to fundraising. So this is what the classes are for. And the benefit of this is then you can run a P&L by class. So let me just run a little P&L by class. P&L by class. Get some data in here. 7/1/24 to June 30, 25. And then you will get, apparently I don't have any data in here for that. Hold on, all dates. Okay, there we go. So then you get a column for each program and a column for admin and a column for fundraising. And the reason why that's important is because that's how you have to report it on a 990, and that's how you have to report it on an audit. It's called the Statement of Functional Expenses, and it's basically your expenses in the format of an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this. Here is the expenses. You have a column for program. Whoops, hold on. You have a column for program, a column for management in general, that's admin, and a column for fundraising. And then the rows are the natural categories. And that's exactly what you get here. So it's really very cool. So that's what you use classes for. Now, so I'm going to go back here and you will see when you enter a check, Here's where you put the category, equipment rental. Here's where you put what program it related to. Yes, you can put a single transaction to multiples. Okay, you can do it to multiples, all right, if you need to. Now, the last thing you need to track, let me go back to my little deck here, and this is what we're going to get into tomorrow, is the grant, okay, that paid for it. And that's what we're going to learn tomorrow. And this is why I want you to use the customer field, yours might say donor or member, to put the grant that it related to. And that's what we're going to cover tomorrow, okay? Dia uses, and Tiffany does too, they've been using classes to track their grants. I would like for you to start using customers. There's a lot of advantages to that. You can just use it for your newer grants and you will be sold on it once we go there. Laura has over 500 classes. So can you look at this vertically for each class? I believe you can. Let me look at a report. Let me look at a P&L by class, and then let me customize it, because I think you actually can change what the columns are and what the rows are. Okay, well, let me just put all dates on here then. That's right, I didn't have any data here. Let's go to customize, and is there a grid? Show columns, classes. Is there show rows? I know there's a way to do this. I think you have to build it. I'll have to play with this. I don't want to make other people wait. How frequently are your 3-day seminars offered? Twice a year. The first time in May, and then the second time in November. So let's go back to courses and training, webinars. And the one for the online edition is May the 31st, 1st and 2nd. You can get the recordings. You can buy it and get the recordings if you're not going to be there for all 3 days. And then we're doing it for the desktop again. How many of you are houses of worship? Who is a house of worship? Jessica is. Anybody else a house of worship? Okay. So we have coming up in June, we have a two-day webinar series specifically for Catholic organizations. It should say Catholic here, Bill. We need to put that. And then in September, we've got a 2-day for other houses of worship. This for the desktop and this for the online, September 21st and 22nd. If you don't want to wait for any of this webinar training, you can click on demand. And we have, for those of you that aren't houses of worship, we have something called the bundle. And if you click on it, it is 16 hours of learning. We're going to give you $100 off of this thing. It's normally $400. We're giving it to you for $100 off. Here's a lot of the topics that are covered. If you are a house of worship, you will see that we have one just for houses of worship. I'll click view the course. It's $299. It's already $100 off. Okay. I'm going to give you the coupons because we need to go ahead and finish up. Let's see. Oh, I need to skip all the way to the end. Hold on a second here. All right. So if you want to sign up for the 3-day webinar series, it's NPQ 40 off. Take a look at the website. We can talk about it again tomorrow. If you are interested in getting the on-demand training, the bundle is normally $399. We're giving you $100 off, so it's $298. The code's NPQ, and then we have another code if you just want to get tech support from us, okay? So we put the links in the chat there, and I want to let you guys go because we're running long, I want you to chill Think about what you've learned today. We spent most of the time on in-kind contributions and on tracking volunteers. I think a lot of you have decided that you need more training. Go to the website, take a look around. We're going to have fun tomorrow with restricted grants and board reporting. All right. So I think that's it. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Jean.
Yes, thank you for a wonderful session, and thanks everybody for being so engaged in the chat and the Q&A. And I don't know how Paige is answering all those questions, but she's doing it. So very much appreciate the team. We'll see you all back for part 2 tomorrow.